Good evening and welcome. You're watching the Newshour Agenda. I'm Padmaja Joshi. The BBC documentary on the 2002 Gujarat riots continues to kick up a storm, with it being held up in India now as a fresh example of Islamophobia by the BJP and especially the then Gujarat Chief Minister Narendra Modi. The Congress today said that while the Prime Minister talks about Sabka Saath and advises his party to reach out to all communities, especially Muslims, the reality of this outreach has been laid bare by this 60-minute BBC documentary. However, now a complaint has been filed against India, the Modi question, by a lawyer who accuses the makers of trying to incite Muslims, not just in India, but across the world, and fan a religious divide.
कल सुना देश के विश्वगुरु नरेंद्र मोदी जी येडियुरप्पा को बुला के बताया है मुसलमानों का उसको पूरा कॉन्फिडेंस में लेके काम करना है। ये ऐसा लगता है कत्ल हुआ है वो सोली इसका कॉम्प्लिसेंट एटीट्यूड रिस्पांसिबल है करके बहुत साफ बीबीसी बोला है।
This series is deliberate attempt to create hatred, disharmony between two communities, not only in India but around the world. Today I have filed a complaint with CP Delhi Police against BBC India for their attempt to create disharmony between two communities, and hopefully FIR should be lodged sooner.
But because most people have not even watched the documentary, let me first begin by telling you what is the locus standi and contents of this 60-minute film. Other than talking to victims and witnesses of the riots, the main thrust of the documentary is actually on a report. In 2002, the British government ordered its own inquiry into the Gujarat violence. The documentary has Jack Straw, who was the then UK Foreign Secretary. In fact, he stayed the Foreign Secretary between 2001 and 2006, describing how they went about this inquiry. He says that the UK government sent a team to Gujarat to produce a report, and this report was then sent as a diplomatic cable. But here's the thing. The report itself and this entire process has been debunked by the man who was India's Foreign Secretary at that time. Kamal Sibbal, while speaking to Times Now, said that not only was this attempt at an inquiry an interference in India's affairs, but was also grossly off the mark and mischievous.
The British government had absolutely no locus standi to conduct an inquiry or investigate something that is happening in a foreign country. This is gross interference in the internal affairs of other countries. If they wanted to get briefed, the right way to do diplomatically is either to ask their ambassador to come and speak at the right level, or call in the Indian High Commissioner in the UK and express their concerns, whatever they are, with regard to what is happening on the ground. But you do not interfere in a sovereign country. I got information that they had sent a diplomat on a fact-finding mission to Gujarat, and this was brought to my attention by one of our very friendly EU ambassadors. And he also told me that it was a very negative report on what had happened on the ground. And I took exception to that because the British diplomat had absolutely no right to go and do a on-the-spot investigation without first approaching the government to find out if they had concerns. I don't think we have to at all feel puzzled about the motivations of those who are behind this document. It's very clear. Why are they raking up all this issue 20 years after the events happened? So they are trying actually to build a certain narrative, and that narrative is a prolongation of what we have seen in the Western press in general.
Now the question then is, if it is factually on thin ice and even the diplomatic inquiry is now being debunked, then what are the legs on which this BBC documentary is standing? It speaks in detail about 2002 riots and seems to reach a conclusion that the then Chief Minister Narendra Modi was in no uncertain terms responsible for it. Why and how has this conclusion been reached, And have the ghosts of 2002 been revived only to reignite and fan the narrative about Islamophobia under BJP and more specifically Narendra Modi?
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining us on the show are Rishi Bagri, political analyst, Vivek Srivastav, Dr. Sumanth Raman, Ashutosh Mishra, and Tarnish Qureshi, all political analysts and senior journalists. But my first question is to Amjad Taha, who is a strategic political affairs expert and regional head of the British Centre for Middle East Studies and Research. Amjad Taha, in India, this documentary is being called an example of classic Islamophobia. How do you react?
I think what's clear is Indiaphobia. It's on display as a media attacks Indians' success. I think it's an absolute attack on Indian people, in addition to the attempting to defame Modi, the Prime Minister. The BBC documentary insults Indian vast diversity. And I think it's worth noticing and mentioning here that the Arab world and here the free world stands rightly with Prime Minister of India against this shameful attack and act. And we do ask the BBC where were they from the corruption of the corruption that has been happening in Pakistan by Imran Khan, the Prime Minister, a previous former Prime Minister, or where are they from what's happening from an abuse against the human rights when it comes to Taliban? I think what's happening is that BBC or some members of the BBC acting as a foreign agents rather than just a video makers or interested in the commentary. Now, how we come with this kind of a conclusion is the fact that if you watch the documentary, it has come up with only one perspective from one side rather than what BBC should be about, bringing the two points of view. And that one perspective which been brought up on BBC, it's a perspective of radical Muslim groups who are acting. There is a foreign country that we all know is supporting such radical groups. Okay. The point here is very clear. That BBC has been before bringing and giving a space to a lot of radicals, even in the United Kingdom. Anjum Chowdhury, and a Pakistani who has been calling for jihad and the killing of the British people, the British soldiers.
Okay, so let me stop you there because let's address this one by one. The points that you have raised are that one, this is about Indiaphobia, and second seems to be an effort to try and revive the fault lines within India along religious lines. Sumanth Raman. Interesting perspective, because this is a perspective coming from the Middle East and it is echoed today in a police complaint that has been made against the documentary. That essentially the objective is again revive the fault lines within India.
Padmaja, first of all, when we diss any documentary, we should sort of ascribe a motive.
I'm not dissing it.
I see that a motive has been ascribed.
Hold on a second. Nobody is dissing it. You are examining a documentary on facts and motivations. I am not attributing any. Amjad Taha is in fact the regional head of the British Centre for Middle East Studies. He has studied the UK, the Middle East and India for long.
No, 1 second.
So he is giving his informed opinion.
Good, Padmaja. Padmaja, my point is, let him give his informed opinion, though I don't see how what the BBC did with Imran Khan is directly related to this particular documentary or otherwise. So the point really is that this is a documentary which has been put out by the BBC. Now the BBC today, I don't know, Padmaja, whether you put out that statement which the BBC had made, they sort of seem to stick to their guns. Now, this is not about, ascribing motives to the BBC. If we want to ascribe motives, we have to make specific charges. Who is the BBC? What is the motive? Why, and why would they want to do that? Now, the British government has already distanced itself from this documentary very categorically, right at the level of the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. They've washed their hands off this. They say they
No,
don't
they
agree
haven't washed
with
their hands off.
the
Rishi
findings
Sunak,
of
in
the
fact, has
documentary and so on.
disagreed with the documentary. Rishi Sunak hasn't remained, that he hasn't...
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
He has, in fact, debunked the documentary.
They have said, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you. He has said that he disagrees with the content of the documentary. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They have washed their hands off. They're not saying that they are
Here's the interesting
in
thing.
any way
Then why is it, how is it that the UK government disagrees with the contents of a documentary, but we believe the same contents to say, bingo, Islamophobia in India? How is that? The very characterization of the content and the conclusion is debunked by the Prime Minister of UK. But in India, we say, no, it shows Islamophobia, hence prove it.
Look.
How?
No. One second. Padmaja, let us look at the documentary from two perspectives. One, the content of the documentary, which by all accounts is not anything new. It does not really give us any dramatic new footage or any dramatic new insight as to what happened then. It is purely in the way the conclusions are constructed, which are different from what our own courts have said over the years. The second part is the timing. Now, why is it being released now is a question. In fact, I had raised that question yesterday. What is the reason for this documentary being put out 20 years after the event? That is a question which is legitimate. But at the same time, now, had we not taken to promoting this documentary on national TV through these debates, hardly anybody would have noticed it.
Sir, nobody is promoting it, first of all. And nobody is promoting it. You are well within your rights to question factually when such assertions are being made about the country and its people. You have all the right in the world to question it on its veracity and fact. Now let me bring in Rishi Bagri on the one substantive question that you have raised. Why would the BBC do it, Rishi Bagri? Why would they? Now this complaint says, oh, you are trying to turn Hindus against Muslims and vice versa. Why would the BBC do it? Why would they?
No, you need to understand, go to the history of this 2002. I mean, Gujarat riots happened in 2002. Congress was in power from 2004 and 2014. They use CBI and all the other investigative agency in their hand. They constituted SIT, which actually grilled the sitting chief minister for hours. I mean, they even actually hired NGOs like Sabrang to create the witnesses and everything, but failed. I mean, many journalists were hired.
No, but why would the BBC do it? Talk about the BBC.
Exactly. No, that is what I'm saying. Why the BBC is doing? BBC is doing because India is progressing quite well. I mean, you see that India has just surpassed Britain. If you see in the nominal GDP, now you see the Britain is going in a bankrupt situation, and India is surging ahead in all the economic parameters. Their energy prices have gone 10 times. Our energy price remains quite constant. Our inflation remains constant. Their inflation is on double digit. Obviously, that is one of the things. They cannot see India progressing so well in the leadership of PM Modi, and that is the reason they are targeting Modi. And they are targeting not only Modi, they are targeting the people of India, their democracy, the independence of the judiciary, which has given the clean sheet to the PM Modi, and they are also targeting and insulting the voters, the Indian voters who are actually voted for him.
Okay, so divided country cannot march forward. Jealousy stopping India's march. Vivek Srivastava.
Yes, see, first of all, I do not know, and I'm happy to know from Bagri ji that we are a developed country now and United Kingdom is a developing country. Thanks for this enlightenment to the whole nation. Now, secondly, somebody makes a documentary, whether it is an organization or an individual, and you become so scared that to harass them, aap FIR kar rahe ho, aap case kar rahe ho. What does it show about India? What does it show about the government? And what does it show about the Prime Minister of India?
First of all, the Prime Minister of India hasn't filed the FIR, and what it says about India is that you believe in rule of law, where people aren't picked up and they aren't threatened with beheading. Even if you feel offended, even if you feel that somebody is factually incorrect, you go to the police and you file a complaint, unless you are saying we are denied that right also now. That is what it shows about India.
Freedom of expression, madam. A journalist should be allowed to write and make whatever he or she wants.
Exactly, and freedom of expression also means that somebody has the right to object.
पे केस करेंगे कैसे चलेगा?
अरे केस ऐसे चलेगा ना कि भाई आप ये तो कहोगे कि आप अपने फैक्चुअली तो सही होंगे. फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन ये मतलब थोड़ी ना आप किसी को जाकर के बोल दो कि तुम लुटेरे हो, तुम मैस मर्डरर हो, तुम चोर हो, तुम उचक्के हो, ऐसे नहीं होता ना.
Every debate should be questioned. No, listen. Padmaja.
Sir, any debate where unfounded allegations are made, which are factually incorrect, are questioned.
Please understand. It is not unfounding. What is unfounding according to you could be factual according to somebody else. So cases and FIRs are not the solution. You are trying to curb the voice of independence. It is bad. Number one. Number two, while Atal Bihari Vajpayee of the Bharatiya Janata Party, despite the fact that he is no more, is still an asset. And even the opposition party leaders like Rahul Gandhi visit him in Bharat Jodo Yatra. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi, even though he is the Prime Minister, is not going to be an asset to this party in the coming years.
Sir, can we please talk about facts and not...
Gujarat, they are still haunting the BJP.
Okay, this is just your, your wishful thinking. Can we talk about facts? So let me actually get to the facts and bring back...
I'm telling you the facts.
Okay, let me bring back Amjad Taha. Amjad Taha, now here is the... Hold on a second. Here is the secret report that the documentary largely revolves around. The secret British report of 2002 says, and I quote, extent of violence much greater than reported. Widespread and systematic rape of Muslim women. Violence politically motivated. Aim was to purge Muslims from Hindu areas. Had Godhra not occurred, another pretext would have been found because the attack on train at Godhra was only a pretext. Now, based on this is what people in India are saying, that Islamophobia has been proven, hasn't it?
Well,
and this report has never come out earlier.
Okay, let's talk about this. Let's make things very clear here. When it comes to BBC, I ask our Indian friends to go back to the cases that has been raised in Britain against BBC and how many of their cases has been either a fraud or misinformation. BBC is not the only channel that says whatever he says and is 100% correct. No, they have been accused and there is a lot of cases against them from the minorities inside Britain to all the way the British people, white people, a lot of different aspects of the country have been raising a lot of cases. Now, all you need to do, use your lovely fingers, smash something on the keyboard. All you need to write BBC controversial or BBC lies, and there is millions of reports and hundreds of reports that talks about it. We have cases of Mexico. We have sexism. In fact, what I can ask the our friends from India to go on the 20th October 22, when literally this is what BBC says: Diwali has become an anti-woman festival. Excuse me, we as Muslim, we as Arabs, we see this as it appeared to be a Hindu phobia that is becoming a media trend. According to BBC.
Wait, so you're saying that the BBC said that Diwali is an anti-Muslim festival?
It's an anti-woman festival.
Anti-woman festival?
Festival, yes. Which is harming, and this is literally saying the Hindu religion does not respect a woman. What we know as Muslim, that the Hindu religion, in fact, honor a woman, respects a woman, and in Diwali, that's what the humanity should celebrate. But what happened here was a clear Hindu phobia. If a channel or a platform that is becoming clearly Hindu phobia or India phobia, you should not trust them for any single word that comes from them, and whatever comes from BBC should be questioned. Why?
Interesting.
Because
so the motivation...
On the 20 October 2022, until this moment, they did not remove that report. It still exists, and it's against the woman. And
so this goes beyond Mr. Modi. This is about India phobia and Hindu phobia, says Amjad Taha.
If I can add one comment.
Yeah.
If I can add one
there is absolutely, I mean, I'll be very clear. Teesta Stalwart is an Indian, Bilkis Bano is an Indian, Jafri is an Indian, and there were thousands of Muslims who were massacred in Gujarat, and that is the reality. Are you trying to tell me that the Gujarat riots never happened?
Sir, that is not even the point of this documentary. The Gujarat riot happened, which is why people have been convicted for the Gujarat riots and are currently in jail. Similarly, the Godhra train burning happened, and that is the reason why people are in jail for the Godhra train burning. Let me bring in Tarnish Qureshi, because there is one thing that everyone is raising. Even Sumanth Raman is questioning Danish. Okay, Amjad Taha, yes.
Even the reality, you should not take the facts from the mouth of the devil. If you believe there is something happened, go ahead, find it, investigate it. There is a rule of law. We know, as there is 204 million Muslims have felt at home in India. It's for centuries that their heritage has preserved as Islamic values. We celebrate, and we always celebrate the diversity of India. There is a massacre. There is many things that happens every single day, but there is a rule of law, there is courts that you should follow. You do not get your rights from BBC, a person who lies, and the person who is being harming a lot of societies.
Listen, it is not the question of BBC. It is a question of United States also. It did not give a visa to the then Chief Minister for 10 years. The Kalka Bacha from Pakistan, the Foreign Minister, goes to United Nations and calls my Prime Minister the butcher of Gujarat, and we get a
it does not make the United States the right country, because the same country, United States, gave a visa to the Iranian regime, which has been killing thousands and millions of people in Yemen, in Iraq, and so on. Just because someone enters the United States of America, it doesn't make him a hero. It doesn't make him an angel.
My Prime Minister should denounce United States of America first.
You just were defending the United States.
How convenient! You just quoted the United States denying a visa to Mr. Modi as the ultimate example of his guilt, and now you want the same Mr. Modi to denounce the United States. At least figure out which side you're on, Vivek Srivastava. As a typical communist, you are quite opportunist as well. Please let me bring in Danish Qureshi at this point. Danish Qureshi, everyone, including even Sumanth Raman, is questioning the timing. What is the idea of bringing it up 1 year before the general elections in India? Same 2002 story, same Islamophobia, same butcher of Gujarat. Why? Why now?
Padmaja, try to understand what was the fact. There are some questions which are unanswered till today from 2002, and that is the problem with BJPians is that they talk when Mr. Modi gets clean sheet from the court. That is the rule of law. But if the same court says to rebuild all the religious places which have been destroyed or been demolished by rioters, till today no action has been taken by the state. At the time of when Mr. Modi was Chief Minister, that time also, and now they are Prime Minister, even then also. Second thing, we talk about the role of Prime Minister. Remember one thing, Bilkis Banu, rapist, recently got free from the jail. What was the ground? The rarest of the rest matter, a woman
Mr. Qureshi, again, we have discussed that, and we have unequivocally said that that was wrong. Right now, the issue is very, very narrow. This documentary is not talking about Bilkis Bano. No, hold on a second. This documentary is not talking about Best Bakery. This documentary is very narrow in its scope about Mr. Modi and the 2002 riots and whether there is culpability. So please, let's stick to that. Now, you mentioned facts. You said that, a lot of facts are ignored by the BJP.
Come on conclusion.
Yeah. A lot of facts are ignored by the BJP, but here's what you are ignoring, and this documentary has also ignored. Multiple facts we put out over the last 48 hours. Now let me put out some more. The BBC, hold on a second, sir. Hold on a second. We've spoken of the sentencing, we've spoken of the arrests. The BBC, another point that it raises is about how the writers were given a free run, and it was done at the behest of the highest office, which is told to the BBC reporter by a colleague who spoke to an anonymous source. So it's third removed hearsay, point number one. Point number two, what this colleague's anonymous source did not tell her is the following. That during the post-Godhra riots, 4,247 cases have been filed. 26,974 arrests were made. 15,369 tear gas shells were fired at the rioters, sir, in the post-Godhra violence, and 5,540 rounds were fired by the Gujarat police in just the first 72 hours, and 101 rioters were shot dead by the same police, led by Mr. Narendra Modi in the first two.
I have saw with my eyes.
But I have also eyes.
Now the
to
second
read.
thing. Now come to the second thing.
And this is all documented before the Supreme Court appointed SIT. I am not making it up. All these figures are before the Supreme Court appointed SIT. The fact that the police has fired live rounds, that 101 rioters have been killed, that over 20,000 people have been picked up and arrested, that thousands have been convicted since then.
When these religious structures are being reconstructed, when they are going to reconstruct that?
Now you are about reconstruction. Sir, I am asking you about the documentary and what it shows.
Padmaja, let me allow to complete. People like Sadhvi Pragya and Pravesh Verma
Can we talk about the documentary?
Yes, he's saying that Chakuon ko dhar laga lo, and Prime Minister is keeping mum. They don't have time to tweet on that. That is the problem. You can see what is the attitude of Mr. Modi towards the Muslim. You can see by the behavior. I have described the number of incidents. What happened in Gujarat.
Now we are talking about his behavior. I can't see, sir. I am not a psychologist.
इनकी रेडी पे से भी कुछ मत खरीदो.
What are we talking about? What are we going on about?
I will send you video of Pravesh Verma and
now we're talking about Pravesh Verma. Okay. Mr. Qureshi, first of all, okay. Calm down, deep breath. Let's talk about a 60-minute documentary, which is the very narrow focus of what we are discussing over here. The very narrow focus is that here is a documentary. It is being hailed in our country by people like you. My question to you is, why do you find this documentary an example of Islamophobia, Mr. Qureshi? This documentary, not generic people, generic utterances. This documentary, how do you find it proof of Islamophobia by BJP? Mr. Qureshi.
Why the Mr. Modi is silent over when Muslims are being abused by when Churiwala has been beaten in Indore? Churiwale ko maar hai. A man with a beard is beaten in the train. Is the death of a recent incident?
Okay. Again, we are going to go all over the place, and because there is so much disinformation out there, it will take me all day and then some more to debunk each one of them. Can we talk about the documentary? Okay, let me bring in Ashutosh Mishra and then I'll come to you, Rishi Bagri. Ashutosh Mishra, here is the one question I've been trying to find the answer to. For 20 years, we've gone back and forth having the same debate. We have been, going from the special court, then to High Court, then to Supreme Court. Finally, it seemed that this was one issue that had been settled. And now comes this documentary, 1 year, a few months before the elections are to take place. And then we are like, Islamophobia. Islamophobia, and it shows the reality of Modi's Sabka Saath. How do you think that this exposes the Sabka Saath slogan? What is your logic is what I'm trying to understand.
Okay, so let's first go back into time and remember what Atal Bihari Vajpayee said about Modi not following Rajdhar. Number one, even Vajpayee ji wasn't so sure about Modi's handling of Gujarat riots. And a lady who is now a current minister in this ministry sat on strike, on a dharna, when Atal Bihari Vajpayee lost the 2004 election. So not everybody is okay with Modi's handling of Gujarat riots. And you keep talking about the clean chit given to him by the Supreme Court. The clean chit, whether given by SIT or Supreme Court, is on his personal involvement. There was no, not enough proof to prosecute him. That's what the SIT said. But Mr. Modi, his involvement in Gujarat riots is on a par with Savarkar's involvement in Gandhiji's murder. Both fired the gun, but it was instigated, and I'm quoting Sardar Patel here. by
Sir,
right-wing
I'm asking you
lobby,
about the timing. Can we do not need a history lecture. We have been through this painful history for the last 21 years. Like I said, we have gone through various courts. Can you come to the point?
Complicity.
Why has this documentary been brought out right now? Why?
Because it got hold of some papers and it made a documentary. You are making 2 and 2 22. Why now? If anything, by raising this Hindu-Muslim divide.
But what is the source of these papers? So here's the thing. Again, let me enlighten you. Let me enlighten you as the source of these papers. This particular. Hold on a second.
Which Modi now doesn't have to keep talking.
Okay. So Rishi Bagri, the journalist, came upon this secret report, secret cable, and so they printed it now. Why would you attribute motives? The timing is incidental. There is no Hindu phobia, Modi phobia, India phobia. There is no phobia.
Actually, the problem is that when PM Modi, with his all welfare schemes, 80 crore, he's giving 80 crore people, and he's not discriminating between Hindu and Muslim. He's giving 80 crore people rations. He's giving PMAY. He is giving all his Jal Jeevan missions and everything without any communalizing. Now, what they need is that they need to remind Muslims कि look 2002 हुआ था, आप वापस मोदी को hate कीजिए. But they don't. ये चीज वो लोग नहीं बताते कि in 2002 election, in 2002 what you call this riots, 35,000 people got arrested. 28,000 were Hindus. 250 writers were killed. 200 were Hindus. Most of the writers who were arrested and killed were Hindus. ये नहीं बताएंगे ये लोग. ये क्या बताएंगे कि देखो मुस्लिम के साथ ये हुआ. ये नहीं बताएंगे कि it was because of the Godra which is a train which got burned and those reaction took place in entire Gujarat. ये नहीं बताएंगे कि Godra का क्यों किया, premeditated क्या था वो. So they are not going to say this. And just before
in that case, BJP should be thanking these foreign publications because 2019 it helped this Hindu-Muslim angle helped Modi get over all his economic mismanagement, and now what it will help him hide his COVID mismanagement.
So you're accepting that this is propaganda which is going to boost him. So you're accepting that this is going to help him because it's meaningless propaganda, Ashutosh Mishra.
No, because it is Hindu-Muslim divide.
Then why is the BJP creating the BBC creating a Hindu-Muslim divide?
That's why we keep discussing it. Because
then why are you supporting BBC report and BJP is dishing it out? You should not.
Then you should debunk the BBC report. Why are you supporting it?
People are so afraid of talking about...
Ashutosh Mishra, you are as confused as Vivek Srivastava. Okay, Sumanth Raman wants to come in, then Amjad Taha.
Yeah, Padmaja, I have a very good suggestion. Why not you get the producers of this BBC documentary and thrash out the issue with them and show them how they have produced a documentary that is devoid of fact and is, biased and has a hidden agenda. Wouldn't that be a much better way of resolving this issue?
They're welcome to watch the show. We've put the facts out here.
That's a simple way, right?
No, we'd much rather put the facts out so that the viewers can watch.
Why don't you call them? Look, when you are... No, Padmaja.
Thank you for your suggestion. Let me extend an open invitation. We would love to have this dialogue with the makers.
Who have an
that being said,
who are working with an agenda.
We are working with an agenda. Of course, our agenda is to make sure that the facts are in front of the public. Absolutely, I have an agenda. And my agenda is to stick to the facts. Because what I am saying... No, hold on a second, sir.
Know who is behind them?
Who's behind them?
Whether somebody is behind them. Don't you want to interrogate them? Don't you want to know who is behind them?
I don't have any authority to interrogate anyone. My job as a medium is only to put the facts out there and the people will decide for themselves what is the spin and what is the agenda. I am not the raw. Why should I interrogate anyone? Amjad Taha wants to come in. Amjad Taha.
Question.
Amjad Taha, I think you've muted yourself.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, go on.
Yes. It says BBC, which means British Broadcasting Channel, which means British values, which means British... Yeah, they're not going to serve any Indian. What I also can say, this kind of propaganda that's been against India It didn't start just with BBC. It started with Wall Street. If you're a Wall Street Journal last year on 15th of October 2022, which wasn't journalism. Again, as we saw, it was against the Prime Minister. It was a clear slur against journalism, and the Muslim Brotherhood, who in United States of America collaborated with some of the Democrats there who are dissatisfied with the Indian progress collectively. They were insulting India and so on. That does not mean that India is a perfect country. India is a country of law. India is a country that's developing. And I wish to hear from those people who are speaking about Islamophobia equally as much as we stand.
Okay, we'll just try and fix the network. We'll just try and fix your network, sir. It seems
who try to use.
All right, go on. We can hear you now.
Sure.
Yes.
As much as we stand against Islamophobism, we should also stand against Hinduphobes around the world who try to use platforms such as BBC against the Indian people. In terms of the cases, there were a lot of cases against BBC when it comes to rights and it comes to lies. There's cases in March 2015, Jeremy contract. That's a case. That's BBC lied in. In January 2016, it talks about the Stephen Dante. That's a case that BBC lied about. 2017, 2018, the gender pay gap. Read about it. With 2019, Naga Mancheri and accused of breaching BBC rules. 2019, the removal of audience, the actual removal of audience, laughter from the question time footage on the news, on a news report. That's 2019. I can go back and forth with you. 2013, November, we're talking about the generation war, where BBC brought Nazi people standing against this kind of things. BBC has played a role when it comes in supporting a lot of radicals or giving voices to those radicals. If you want to fight for your rights and you want to hear about your rights, there is a court of law, or trust me, find a different platform that's not BBC. And there is a lot of Indian platforms and there is a lot of platforms around the world that you can give a voice to.
Vivek Srivastava, and here's the thing. The freedom of speech is there for the BBC. Yeah. Nobody is attacking them for saying you cannot make it. But equally, people have the right to point out the flaws. And there are glaring ones. So you can't say, oh, you know, if you're pointing out somebody's flaws or errors of omission or commission, then you are not against freedom of speech. You are against falsehood.
No.
Vivek Srivastava.
Absolutely. See, now listen to me now, please. Now, see, if you want to discuss the documentary, it's fine. You want to criticize the documentary, it is fine. You want to point out flaws in it, it is fine. But when you start doing court cases, FIRs, harassment, that is wrong. That is curtailing the freedom of expression. I should not do it for any of the shows of Times now also. Nobody has the right to do it. Let Padmaja speak whatever she wants to speak.
Funny you say that, sir, considering the number of cases that are filed against us by so many state governments.
Please let me complete. Please let me complete.
So in your
this documentary is not an attack on India. It is not an attack on the Indian culture, Indian people. The nation is bigger than Modi. This documentary is an attack. It is showing only a particular chief minister, a particular party, a particular thought, the RSS as Islamophobic. And India is much bigger than them. Much, much bigger.
Rishi Bagri, respond.
The RSS. The problem is that...
No, they are not. It's not an attack on India. It's an attack on a particular...
Yes, Rishi Bagri.
No, the problem is that India is doing exceedingly well. Mr. PM Modi is now the president of G20. They are doing much better. This gentleman doesn't even know the basic nominal GDP. He was questioning me. The India has just surpassed Britain, and it has actually emerged as the 5th largest economy in the world. And this guy doesn't want to know that. The problem is that the BBC have a problem. It has a problem when it actually attacks the Indian soldiers, but at the same time it glorified the Taliban. It has a problem when India did the lockdown. It attacked the Indian lockdown. It criticized the Indian lockdown, but it glorified the lockdown of the West by saying that the lockdown saved many lives. So they always have a dual parameters for the India. We have seen multiple times, and this is not an exception. What is happening now?
Okay, I'm just going to leave it by saying this. One is the freedom to make whatever you want to. And yes, everyone has it. It's journalism. Then is the right of the people who feature in that piece of work to point out if they have any problems. And third is the effort to try and use that film, that documentary, as political weapon. And that is where things can get extremely dangerous, which is why the Indian public has as much right to closely scrutinize, examine, and be aware of what is being said and why, just like the BBC is well within its own right to put out whatever investigation or whatever document that they want. That is the beauty of a real democracy. Thanks very much, all gentlemen, for joining me. Thanks for watching.